Hello, today I want to show and explain to you what chess studies, or also called chess compositions, are. Now, what are chess studies or chess compositions? They are chess positions that were set up by a player. For example, the board that you see on your screen. This position was made by Hermann Neustadl. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but yeah, it was made in 1890 and was published by the International Chess Magazine. So you can see it's fairly old. And the special thing about those studies is that they usually or always show you a new idea, or they want to show a concept. Now, there are all kinds of different compositions. For example, the position on your screen is a endgame study because it is a pawn endgame. But there are also mate studies where you have to find a forced checkmate in usually 2, 3, or more moves. And they also always have like some kind of trick to them, or some kind of a solution that you might not expect at first. So, for example, in this position that you see on the screen, you can maybe take some time to solve it, but I just guess that players that usually studied pawn games should already know this position, but they might not know that it is from a chess study. So, what is so special about this position? Now, we have this pawn game, and it looks like that white is, I would say, at first look, if you don't know the position and don't know that this is a study, then you might just think that this is losing for white, because only from the material, black has 2 pawns, white only has 1. The only advantage that you might see is that the king maybe is a quick faster to the black pawns, then black can maybe protect them. But if you just make a move very quickly, then you just realize that you actually lose very quickly. But there is one solution on how to draw the position. So if we just play very quickly, let's say we just play king to f1, maybe trying to shoulder the king, then you will realize that after some moves that there's not really anything that white can do. So here, if we just go further, then you already see here you're not going anywhere. King f1, and now what do? You play king to g4, just king f1, f2, and you will lose the f pawn, and one of the pawns will promote. So this does not work. Okay, so when king f1 does not work, what about just running to the pawns? Now king to e1 is the only winning move for black, and why is that? We will see later on in the solution. And now if you again just run to the pawns, then just king to f2, and we have the same position as before. And if you go back with king to g2, just king e2, and we have again the position that we had earlier. So king g3 does not work either. Okay, then let's try some random move, right? So we know what the opposition is usually if we studied pawn games. So let's try king h2. But again, black can take the opposition with king to d2, and now again there is no way for white to hold the position. For example, king g2, black will just mirror white, and after king g3, we have the same position as earlier, just king to f1. Okay, king g1 just loses to king e3, and we get the same position, and king g3 basically the same, king e3, king g2, king e2. So all these moves don't work. So how can white draw the game? And if you've looked at opposition or studied the opposition endgames, as I already talked about it, you can draw the game by king to h1. If you have studied, as I said, pawn games, then the solution might have come to you very quickly. But if you have not known the position, it might be a bit tricky to solve it. Now, why is this a draw? Now, let's just take a look at what black can play. Let's say black plays king to e2. Now we play king to g2. You might notice that this looks like the same position that we had earlier, but the difference is that now black is the one to move, not white. Usually, black played into the opposition and it was white to move. Now it's the complete opposite. Now, if black plays some move, let's, for example, take king d3 because this is the most testing, then you have again to take the opposition again with king to h3. And after king e3, king to g3. And you just take the opposition. So this does not really work for black. So let's take king to c1, because this looks like, okay, there is no way to go out of the board here. So what should we do? Now, we can still take the opposition with king to g1. If you don't know what the opposition is, it's usually when the kings are you can maybe remember as an odd number of squares apart. For example, this would be 3, or they are just like on the same color, and the one that is the last one to go on this square, on this color, the person has the opposition. So here, let's say you play g4, because king to c2 will just be met by king to g2. Here's the only move to play king to g2. Now, it is a bit different why to play king to g2, because as you might notice, the white king and the black king are the same distance away from this pawn. So let's say if you would take the pawn, then e4 would just win for black. And why is that? Because let's say you play king to f2, there's just king d2, and if you just run with the pawn, then you will see that queen to e1 will come with a check, and black can easily stop the pawn. So taking on g4 is not a possibility. This is why we have to play king to g2. Now, king e2 by black, and now we can take. Now, what's the difference? The difference is that now, after we promote the pawns, that on e1, the queen does not promote with check. So white can just promote 2, and there's no way for black to win the queen in the next few moves. So this is a draw. Now let's see what different compositions could look like. Now, in this composition, the exercise is to find a mate in 5. Now, you can try to set the board up on chess base, leeches or so, and can try if Stockfish or a different engine can find the mate in 5. For example, I tested it here on Chessbase with Stockfish 17.1 in depth 42 with around 1 million positions per second. It only finds a mate in 7. But here you have to find a mate in 5. Now, how to solve these kinds of studies? Now, usually the most obvious solution is not the right one. So just playing c7, for example here, now b6 the only move, now queening, king to g1, bishop takes c6, rook f2 and stuff like this is also fast, but not the right solution. This playing with c7 with the correct play from black, it's only going to be a mate in 7. Now, how can this then be a mate in 5? If you look at the position, then you maybe thought, okay, bishop f1 could be the idea. With checkmate, maybe, but the problem is that black can escape with king takes f3. Now, what you maybe also saw in this position is that black doesn't really have any moves. The only piece or the only pawn that can move for black is this b7 pawn. Now, if you use these two ideas with trying to play bishop f1, and you somehow have to take the option away for black to escape to f3, and thinking about that the b7 pawn is the only pawn that can move, then you can find the possible or the solution fairly quickly. Now, if you still have to take a look at the position to solve it, take your time, but the solution, if you cannot find it, it's not a big problem, even or especially if you're new to chess or if you're new to like this composition solving. Now, as I said, the problem is that after bishop f1, the king can go to f3. Now, there are only two possibilities on how black could not escape to f3. The one, or the first possibility, is that this square is attacked. For example, like here, the bishop attacks f3, or now in this case defends the f3 pawn. Or if it's a piece of his own army. For example, if this would be a black bishop, then bishop f1 would be made. Now, how can we force one of those things? Now, we cannot give a different or another attacker or defender on f3. This would be too slow if you go with the king around, and then you still need somebody to protect f1. So you have to use the second option to put some black piece on f3. And now you see why this pawn on b7 is important. Because this pawn could theoretically take his way through to f3. Now we have to find a way to force these captures. And I think now all of you should have gotten the right idea by now. The right answer is bishop to b6. Now black has to take on d6, bishop c5, black has to take on d5, the bishop goes to d4, black takes again, the bishop goes to e3, black has to take on f3, and now we have the scenario that we wanted. There is a black pawn on f3, black cannot escape to f3, now bishop f1 is made. Now, the last composition that I want to show you is this position made in 1937. It is white to move, and you have to find a mate in 4. Now, you can take your time and try to find a forcing mate in 4. Also, by the way, finding a mate that is longer than 4 moves is not the solution to this puzzle or this composition. Only 4 moves or quicker is a valid solution, but I can tell you there is nothing quicker than 4 moves. So if you thought about this position for some time, then you either have the solution and you're surprised that this is actually possible in 4 moves, or you're confused because you don't see it or you have not found it. So let's look at some possibilities for white. Now, let's say you play king or rook to e1, trying to play rook to e8 mate. Then, first of all, black can stall with making a queen on a1, and then playing something like bishop b8. Of course, this is completely winning for white, but this is not the solution that we are looking for. This is not a mate in 4. So the right solution here is to play rook takes a2, with the idea that white wants to take on h2 with mate. So what is the only possibility for black to stop this? It is to play knight to b2. Okay, white can take on a3 with the rook, threatening rook to h3 mate. How can black stop this? Knight to b3. Now, taking on b3, there's still knight to d3, and then this is only made in 5 moves. But there is rook takes a6. Again, threatening rook h6 mate. Now, black can either just do nothing and this is a mate in 4, or black can try to stop this with bishop b6, but then there's rook a8 mate. And surprisingly, even though there are 6 different black pieces and pawns on the a file, black can mate in 4 moves on a8. So these were only a few positions out of thousands of compositions that you can find online or in different databases or books. And all of the positions that you found here, you can find the links to those problems in the description. If you know different or very interesting compositions, then you can maybe share them online or with your friends, because they are usually very interesting, and maybe you will make your own composition and find a completely new position with a new idea, or a forcing mate with only one solution. And yeah, that's just a different way to play or analyze chess, you could say. Yeah. I hope it was fairly interesting. I will post some more interesting studies in the future, and I hope you have fun analyzing and solving more compositions.